Hey everyone, I'm Hannah McAdams. I'm back with my daughter
Ellie,
and we are going to talk about the third video in this series of how to determine whether a syllogism is valid today. Okay, so we are going to talk especially about the validity of the syllogism. We already went over rules 1 and 2, okay? And then we're going to go over today we're focusing on the last 3 rules, which have to do with their charge. And what I mean by that is whether it's an affirmative or a negative, okay? All right, so you ready, Ellie?
No.
Let's
okay.
review what to do first. So the first thing that I like to do, I think this is just very helpful, is to prep the syllogism. So we have this syllogism: no cats or dogs. Some cats are not horses. Therefore, some dogs are horses. Okay, well, we can already sort of tell that this is not true, but is it a valid syllogism? Remember, truth and validity are different. We talked about that last time. So the way that we determine whether it's valid is to go through all of these rules. The first rule we're going to look at today is the undistributed middle. But before we do that, I want to prep the syllogism by circling all the distributions. You know what I mean? Okay, so if we look at the first one, no cats or dogs, that's an E statement, right?
Cats and dogs are circled and
right. Both cats and dogs are circled because both the subject and the predicate are circled over on the left in the box here, right? And it's an E and it's negative. You see that? And the reason it's negative is because it has that word no in it. Okay. So I'm going a little faster than I did before, right? Okay. So the next one, some cats are not horses. Well, that's an O statement, right?
Only the
predicate is circled, which is horses. And it's also negative because it has the word not in it, okay? And then, therefore, some dogs are horses. I know this just sounds ridiculous, but
that is an I statement, so it's nothing.
Nothing is circled. Okay. So, and the reason is because it has the some, but if you look over on the I, there's nothing there. So it's I and positive, but nothing is circled, nothing is distributed. So we're going to go quickly over the undistributed rule, or rule 1, undistributed middle. So the middle term is the term that is in both premises, but not in the conclusion. So the first two, we have no cats or dogs, some cats are not horses. So what did I say twice? Cats. Right. So one of those two needs to be circled, at least one. And one is circled. So it follows the distributed middle rule. Okay. What about the distributed conclusion? Okay. So that means that if there is something in the conclusion that is circled, then it has to also be circled in the premise. But we don't have anything circled in the conclusion, so we don't need to worry about that one. Okay. See how there's nothing circled in that sentence?
Yes.
Great. Okay. 2 negative premises. Okay, so the rule is you can't have 2 negative premises. Okay, so we look at the first 2 statements, which are the premises, and if both of them are negative, then it's breaking that rule.
They're both negative.
They're both negative because we have a no cats or dogs. That no word is negative, and we have some cats are not horses.
This is right? The easiest rule to follow.
Right. So there cannot be 2 negatives. We have 2 negatives. So this is breaking that rule. Okay, this is called 2 negative premises.
Wow, they're so creative with their names.
Well, I like that they're not because it's easier to remember. Okay.
Well, why can't we just call it the blue elephant?
Right, that would be confusing. All right, so now we're going to talk about rule number 4, which is negative premise and affirmative conclusion. Okay, so again, we're going to prep this sentence, and I'm going to go fast because I feel like we get this now, right? All is an A statement, right? Mm-hmm. And so it is cellists. The subject is distributed. It's a positive statement.
I wondered why you picked that.
Maybe because I play the cello. I'm also short, so I don't know. All cellists are string instrument players. No cellists are tall people. Some tall people are stringed instruments players.
I hadn't even read that sentence.
Okay. So no is an E statement because it has the no in it. And both the subject and the predicate are distributed. Okay. And then some tall people are string instrument players. That's the I statement, right? So we don't have to do anything, but it is a positive statement because it doesn't have the word no or not in it. Okay, so rule 1, Ellie, undistributed middle. So the rule for rule 1 is we have to find the middle term, which is the term that's in both of the premises, but not in the conclusion. Cellists. Okay. And one or more have to be circled.
Both are
circled, so we're good. Distributed conclusion. All right, so we look at the conclusion. If there's something circled in the conclusion, then it has to also be circled in the premise.
There's nothing circled.
Nothing circled, so we don't need to worry about that one. Okay, 2 negative premises. Well, we have a positive and a negative, right? So that's not it. Okay, and then here we have a negative premise and an affirmative conclusion. Okay, well, I see a negative premise. Do you?
Uh-huh.
Which one?
The no cellists are tall people.
Right, it's negative because that word no. And then
we have affirmative conclusion.
We have an affirmative conclusion. Okay, so that one's
That's
fine.
Not the conclusion.
But this one is negative, right? And this one is positive. So this is breaking that rule, rule number 4, negative premise and affirmative conclusion. Okay, and it is called negative premise, affirmative conclusion.
Can't I just name it pink cats?
No. All right, so rule 5. All students are people. Some students are female. Some females are not people.
Pretty sure I'm a person.
Well, I mean, you have female cats that are not people.
True. I didn't think of that.
Okay. All right, so let's see if this is breaking any rules.
What? No.
What?
All students are people is an A, so we circle the students. That's an A positive. Some students are female is a I positive, and you don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Then some females are not people is a O statements, O negative, and you circle the premise, right? The predicate.
Predicate.
There, okay.
You always say premise instead of predicate.
I know, there's too many P words.
Yes, okay. So, this is breaking actually lots of rules. Okay, undistributed middle.
Students are students. It follows that rule.
Okay, so the reason that it follows that rule is that students is the middle term. They're in both the premises but not in the conclusion, right? And at least one of them has to be circled, which it is, okay? Distributed conclusion is people is circled here.
I don't see any people in the
people
second.
Is not circled there. So this breaks rule 2. Okay, so that's called the illicit
major.
Why is it the major?
Because it's the very end of the conclusion.
People is the major term. Go to the conclusion, go to the end. That's the major term. So illicit major. 2 negative premises. Well, this, you can almost just look at it. Like, are there 2 negative premises?
Nope.
They're both positive, so we don't need to worry about that, right? Okay. Negative premise, affirmative conclusion. Well, we just said that both the premises are positive, so that doesn't follow that rule, but look at this one. 2 affirmative premises.
It does follow that rule?
Or it does, it doesn't break that rule, sorry. It does follow that rule.
You're confusing me.
Here, we'll go back. Okay. This one does not break that rule because there's not a negative premise, right? Okay. 2 affirmative premises and a negative conclusion. So this is the last rule. Okay. So if you see this, we have 2 affirmative premises.
And a negative conclusion.
But our conclusion is negative because we have that word not in the conclusion. Some people are not people. Okay. So this is actually breaking 2 rules. It's an illicit major. And also...
What did you mean it was breaking a ton of rules? It's only breaking 2.
Well, that's a lot. 2 affirmative premises and a negative conclusion.
Okay. Mom, doesn't one premise have to be a positive, another premise have to be negative, and then
I'm gonna go over that in a minute. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so do you want to learn a shortcut to determine if a syllogism is breaking rules 3 through 5? Yes. Okay. So I didn't put words in, but we're just going to do this. All S is P, and we're not going to worry about the distributed rules. Okay, we're not going to worry about the undistributed middle or the distributed conclusion. We're just going to look at this. So all S is P, some S is P, some S is not P. Okay, so first we're going to find the charge of just the conclusion. Some S is not P is what?
Negative.
It's negative, right? Okay, so if there is a negative conclusion, then you must have one negative premise. You can't have two negative premises because of Rule 3, which says two negative premises is breaking a rule, right? And you can't have, you can't have two negative premises because that rule. The rule is you can't have two negative premises ever, okay?
You do know that the people can't see you pointing to the screen,
I'm
right?
pointing to the screen. Okay. And also, you can't have two affirmative premises and a negative conclusion, right? Because that's Rule 5, okay? So we have a positive here and a positive there, which means that this is breaking Rule 5, two affirmative premises and a negative conclusion. Does that make sense? Kind of? So the first thing you need to do is look at the charge of the conclusion. Okay? All right, so it's breaking that rule. All right, now let's do another one. All S is P, no S is P, some S is P.
Positive.
So the conclusion is positive. Okay. If it is affirmative...
Why did you skip Rule 2?
I don't know. Well, because we talked about that last time.
Oh.
If the conclusion is affirmative, then both premises must be affirmative. Well, all SSP is affirmative, but no SSP is negative not. Because of that word no. So the reason we know this is that we can't have two negative premises, right? And we can't have a negative premise and an affirmative conclusion. So therefore, we have to have all positives for it to be not breaking those three rules. Okay? So this is positive, this is negative, because of that word no. Okay? So this is breaking that rule. Whew! Want to learn a shorter shortcut.
Why didn't you just start with that?
No, because I wanted to go through the logic of it. This is a logic class, so.
Wow. I would have never guessed that.
Okay, so the shorter shortcut is, if the conclusion is negative, there must be one negative premise. If the conclusion is affirmative, both premises must be affirmative. Okay? In our book, he says that if you have one negative premise, you have to have one, if you have one negative conclusion, you have to have one negative premise. If you have zero negative conclusions, meaning a positive or an affirmative conclusion, then you have to have zero negative premises. Okay? Which means that they have to be positive. Okay? All right. That is all I have for you today. Great job. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks, Elle.
You're welcome.
See you later.